Jimmy Graham has signed with the Saints. Why? I have absolutely no idea. We are here with Off the Bench Overtime, Bob Hebert and Jacob Hester. We're going to go ahead and see what they think, what the reasoning is. Maybe they have better intel than I do. Maybe they have some inside sources, or maybe they can just tell us what the Saints are thinking. I certainly will tell you what I'm thinking. What are we doing? What's going on here? I've been talking about for months that the Saints are a top 4 team in the NFC. I've been saying for months the Saints are going to win 12 games, 13 games. Find me 7 losses on the schedule. I've said all these things. I've said Derek Carr, I believe in him. Love him to death. Love him like a father. Love him like a brother. I've said that. DeAndre Hopkins was just signed for 2 years, $28 million? Odell Beckham moved this offseason. Darren Waller moved this offseason. Devontae Adams talking about being traded. How is all that happening? All this free agency, all this moving and shaking, and how do the Saints end up with Jimmy Graham? Is Marcus Colston on the way? Is the beer man Michael Lewis about to get signed? Why did we do this? We have Foster Moreau. We have Juwan Johnson. We have tight ends. What's going on here, ladies and gentlemen? Now, when I first heard the news, I thought, okay, he's signing as a Saint to retire, whatever. 10-day contract, however it is, who knows? But then reports come out immediately, no, he's going to play. No, he's going to try and play. He's going to try and be a factor. I'm not sure if this is exactly the move when you sign Derek Carr, your franchise quarterback, and then get him some help. Is this what we want to do? Now, I don't think in the grand scheme of things it really matters. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's not a make or break situation. It's almost kind of a free roll where if Jimmy Graham is a factor, okay, sure. If he's not, who cares, I guess? My bigger issue is if we are willing to make moves, why aren't we making different moves? Why didn't we go get DeAndre Hopkins? If DeAndre Hopkins is 2 years, I think it's 2 years, $28 million. If that's what he signed for, how about we take some of that Jimmy Graham money and go get him? Because then all of a sudden, if you're looking at Michael Thomas, asterisk, may play. But at the best, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, and DeAndre Hopkins, wow. What a wide receiver core. At the worst, it's Chris Olave and DeAndre Hopkins. Wow. What a receiving core. So I've got some questions of why this happened.
Was tweeting out a picture of Jimmy Graham signing a contract with Guess Who's Back. Now,
that deafening silence is exactly what I thought when it first happened. I was looking at it, I was just like, what am I reading? Is this AI generated? Am I being tricked? Am I being trolled here? What is this?
Is this a one-day retirement? He looks like he's in great shape still.
First thing I thought. Now, here's a little fact for you. Jimmy Graham's only been out of football for 1 year. He didn't play last year. He played the year before. So, for some reason, it seems like he hasn't played in 5 years, but he has been active. So, when I first heard it, I was like, this guy hasn't played in 5-6 years. But when you think about it like that he only missed last year, it's not as insane that he could just play a season.
I read a story recently. Is he like climbing mountains or something? What's he been doing? Who'd they bring in to help coach? They brought in Leroy Glover as a part of the diversity program. Yeah. I want to say they brought in somebody else as well. Is Jari Evans back in the mix, maybe? Am I making that up?
I think so. Yeah, I think
Jari Evans is back in the mix. Like, are they bringing Jimmy Graham to work with Juwan Johnson? Timothy on Twitter says 1 year deal from what I've seen. What is this? But you said Jimmy Graham's not retired.
Yeah.
See, this is kind of his reaction is what I'm saying, where a lot of people believe he's retired. A lot of people believe he's been inactive. And then when you look at it, you're like, well, I mean, maybe, I guess not. I guess Jimmy Graham has played just as much as Michael Thomas has the last couple of years. I saw an interesting stat. And since he's been drafted, Kyle Pitts for the Falcons, since he's been drafted, him and Jimmy Graham have the same amount of touchdowns in that time frame, 3. How crazy is that? How nuts is that? In the comments below, did you know that? Does that surprise you? It surprises me. Which goes more to all these people that are saying, the Falcons are loaded. Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts has had the same production as Jimmy Graham, and Jimmy Graham hasn't played in 2 years. What's going on here?
It says, as of April 2023, according to Bleacher Report, and the story they did with Jimmy, he's not officially retired. I don't know the last time he played. We got to look that up. But, I mean, it looks on
Nick Underhill, Jimmy Graham signed a 1-year deal.
Okay, we were wrong. I was about to say it looks on the surface it's a retire as a Saint kind of situation.
Yeah, it's not.
Welcome back, Jimmy Graham. That is very unexpected.
I feel like it's like 8 years too late.
Yeah.
But
Max Unger next.
if we think about the biggest, shout out Max Unger. He changed the game when he came in.
Stud.
He did. Like, I mean,
He was a beast.
people want to. I don't know that the Saints. I think that trade was almost worth it for the Saints as much. That's what I was gonna say though. Like,
A good question I have. Like, let's take out the Saints backstory. Let's take out the fact that Jimmy Graham was the best tight end in the NFL when he was playing for the Saints at his prime. Let's take that part out. Let's just pretend like he's just a regular player. What is the plan? Because you have 3 tight ends, and you just got 2 of them. Boston Moreau and Jimmy Graham. So you got to have a plan for them. You didn't just accidentally end up with 3 tight ends. This is a decision. This is a decision you have made, whether it's Loomis or Allen, or I know it's not Pistol Pete Carmichael. What decisions is he making? I know it's not him. So between Allen or Loomis, what's the plan? You know, like, now my original thought, once I started to kind of get past the retirement and all that stuff, was that maybe he's a bit of a failsafe for Michael Thomas. Now hear me out. Maybe the Saints believe that Michael Thomas, with his injuries, has lost a step. And maybe they believe that Thomas is kind of is transitioning into more of a, I don't want to say a tight end role, because it's not like that, but more of like a possession receiver, more of a, a bigger frame, a bigger body, less of an explosive receiver and more of a, like what you would think of your prototypical tight end. And maybe they think if Thomas misses games, then Graham can kind of fill that role. Now, before you lose your mind at the keyboards, I'm not saying Jimmy Graham is going to be lined up out wide. I'm not saying that Jimmy Graham is going to try and run Michael Thomas routes. I'm saying if they need that frame, that body, hands like that in situations like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, maybe they believe having someone like Jimmy Graham can fill that role a little bit. Maybe they look at their wide receiver room and say, well, we don't really have anyone that does that. We have a lot of burners. We have a lot of slot guys. We have a lot of separation guys. But we don't have like a frame, big hands, 3rd and 5, get the ball inside to him and let him box out the cornerback or box out the safety and let's get a first down. And maybe that's what they're thinking. Well, if we have Jimmy Graham in there, he can kind of do that. If that's the case, it's a stretch, but I could kind of see that. I could kind of understand where Jimmy Graham would fit a very specific role. And honestly, I'd be kind of okay with that, if that's the plan. If Mickey Loomis calls me, I know he's watching the video, if he calls me and says, look, we're only going to get Jimmy a very specific set of plays, and he's going to run those if he's needed to do it, okay, I'm okay with that. If he's a red zone, goal line, 3rd down kind of guy, all right, we're thinking outside the box. Okay.
out of all the players to leave, whether it be like, remember, Malcolm Jenkins went on and won a Super Bowl. Trey Hendrickson went on and has been incredible and has
T.J. Gardner-Johnson
with the Bengals. Jimmy Graham go on and didn't go on to do great things, but I would feel like even getting Max Unger back, which was massive because the Saints were awful in the interior for a couple of years there, and he led to a lot of success. I do feel like no one leaving hurt worse than Jimmy Graham, right? Because no one felt as good as Jimmy Graham at the time when he was at his best. He was unstoppable.
Yeah, he was sweet. The problem with losing a player like Jimmy, is the same thing with the Chiefs. Like if the Chiefs lost Travis Kelce, the problem is it's so hard to replace that person. At the time, Jimmy Graham was a very unique tight end. He was kind of that Antonio Gates, kind of guy where he was athletically better than all the tight ends, but he wasn't a wide receiver, but he pretty much was, especially in the red zone, especially with a quarterback like Drew Brees. So the problem isn't him leaving, it's always replacing him. When you have a unique player like that, difficult to find a back or a replacement like Taysom Hill. We talked about Taysom Hill last time we talked about the Saints. If Taysom left, the issue would be who the hell else is out there that's like that, right? Like the pool of people to replace him with is very small. So that was the Jimmy thing. Drew, if there was a similar Jimmy Graham, Drew Brees would have been fine with whoever that person is. Just like Marcus Colston or any of these other players that Brees made great, Brees is going to make whoever's around him great. You can replace a Marcus Colston, no offense to Marcus Colston, but you can replace him with 100 different receivers in the NFL. Michael Thomas, same thing. If Michael Thomas if we did a 1-for-1 with Michael Thomas, there's a ton of players that Brees could have done the same thing with. I mean, you can like Mike Evans. If Mike Evans would have been in Michael Thomas's place at that time, and when getting those targets, he would have been just as good. So, but Jimmy Graham, at the time, there was no replacement. Travis Kelce right now, who are you replacing him with? Even someone like George Kittle or Mark Andrews, they're probably not a 1-for-1 replacement.
He's the one that made everything work, it felt like in the 2011 Saints offense when, like we talked about, that was the best Saints team that we've ever seen, even better than the 2009 Super Bowl team. So much of that was because of Jimmy Graham. He was so excited, and then he started to have the fallout with a franchise tag, right, where he was trying to say, I'm a receiver. They're saying you're a tight end. They have
that was a
fight
problem
about it, and eventually it ends up with Jimmy Graham getting moved on.
I mean, that's out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
You have
36 years old.
Yeah, False Moro, you have Juwan Johnson, you have whatever Taysom Hill is as far as a tight end. You have Jesse James. Now you've got Jimmy Graham, apparently, who last year did play in 15 games for the Bears.
Okay, there we go. So he's still very much active.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought he'd been out of the league at least 1 year.
No, well, he wasn't. This is 2021. So.
Yeah, so he was out for 1 year. I was right. Again, per usual, no notes. They got laptops. They got producers. They got... Kidding me? Come on. I also want to see the contract. If it's like 1 year veteran minimum, who cares? Who cares? If we pay him, which I doubt we... I mean, put in the comments below if you've seen the contract. I have not, so I'm not going to try and lie to y'all and say that I did. But if we give him a 1 year vet minimum deal, who, whatever. Monopoly money. It's the NFL. Who cares?
Looks like he didn't play.
He didn't play last year.
Okay, my bad. I thought you said
so
last year.
I might have said last season. I meant his last season. Sorry if I... 2021, in 2020, he actually had a really good year in 2020. He started 15 games, had 500 yards almost receiving. But, all right, sure.
Okay, well, guys, it's a morning for breaking news. This is terrifying. From Shams Charania, USC All-American Bronny James.
All right, I guess they're shifting into Bronny James talk. But that's a Jimmy Graham thing. I mean, it's when I hate the reaction to the Jimmy Graham thing the day of. I mean, I'm filming this on a Friday, so a little bit after the news came down. But people are up in arms about this kind of stuff. And I tell y'all all the time, and I tell people all the time, this doesn't matter. Like Jimmy Graham being signed, who cares? We're not paying him 1 year $40 million. We're not paying him 1 year $5 million, I'm sure. Like we're probably paying him the mint. Who cares? You got to fill roster slots. If they think they can use him 4 times a game, 5 times a game, great. Anyone that's telling you that Jimmy Graham can turn back the clock or Jimmy Graham's going to have 100 receptions or Jimmy Graham is going to have 15 touchdowns, like they just don't know what they're talking about. Jimmy Graham is going to be a player that plays to me, this is the same thing as signing like a special teams player. Are you going to get worked up over a gunner on the punt team? No, but you have to have one. You got to have roster slots. So if they said, hey, we need a blank offensive player to fill this specific slot, and they say, what about Jimmy Graham on the cheap? Sure. It works for me. That's why I think like a lot of this, if you go to Saints channels, like if you go to strictly Saints YouTube channels, you'll see a bunch of stuff like interior offensive line highlights from day 1 of training camps. Like guys, we're too in the weeds. We're too in the weeds. We can't be ranking who's the best nickel back we have first day of training camp. Who the hell cares? We got to be worried about the bigger things. We got to be worried about the offense. We got to worry about the scheme. We got to worry about the philosophy, the plays. We got to worry about the quarterback, the wide receivers, the running back. Who is starting in these pivotal positions? Jimmy Graham being signed? Sure. If he converts 5 first downs for us, I will consider that a success. I almost just swallowed my tongue there. Let me know in the comments below. Are you happy to see Jimmy Graham return? Does it matter? Are you buying a Jimmy Graham jersey? Are you busting out your old Jimmy Graham jersey? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next video.